K-pop Demon Hunters has taken the world by storm, rising through the ranks at Netflix to become that platform's most watched film ever. And I just have to say that after suffering through Disney's live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch, it's nice to finally get a film that I can watch and not have to worry about the studio trying to pump out tons of merch for some weird furry blue critter.
Oh shit, here we go again.
However, unlike Lilo and Stitch, where I watched that movie once and never want to have to watch it again, I've seen K-pop Demon Hunters 3 times in its entirety and keep going back to listen to the songs over and over. And I'm far from the only one, because not only did the film dominate Netflix, but the songs are climbing the music charts and have been at the top for a long time now. So what is it about this movie that so many people love? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, because I'm going to go through this list that I've made of some of the things that I thought the movie did really well and see if we can delve a little bit more into it. So let's start out with the animation. It's gorgeous. I can't think of a single part of this movie that didn't look great. Everything from the character designs to the fight and dance sequences, it all looks so good. And I think the plot is solid too. It's not very original, but I think the way it's executed works so well that it doesn't really matter that we've seen this kind of story a few times before. And I do like how the film starts out lighthearted and silly. It doesn't feel like there's very high stakes here, even though they're talking about killing demons and saving the world. But as the movie goes on, you'll see some of those darker elements start to kick in, and they're really effective when they do. So let me try to sum up the plot really quick. There are humans and there are demons. Humans good, demons bad. Except one of the humans is part demon and one of the demons used to be a human. Now let's talk about our protagonists. We've got Mira, Zoe, and Rumi, and together they form the musical demon hunters known as huntrix. I think these characters are a lot of fun. They have their own distinct personalities and traits, but they also are similar enough that you can believe that they're a real friend group. And they don't feel generic either, unlike the Saja boys, and we'll get to them later. But take for instance Mira. She's very bold and aggressive, and she will get into your face if she feels she needs to, but that's all a mask to hide the fact that she's afraid of losing her friends. And Zoe is very similar. She is very enthusiastic about all of her journals where she keeps her lyrics, and she just writes constantly, always coming up with a new idea because she's afraid that if she doesn't have something new that she can pull out of her hat, then people won't need her around anymore. And then we have Rumi, who is of course our main protagonist and the true star of the Huntrix group, and even the other two girls acknowledge this. But what's her big fear? She's part demon. Apparently Rumi's mom, who was a part of the previous generation of hunters, met a charming demon at some point in her life, and they
Got busy!
Which of course resulted in Rumi's birth, immortalized by the patterns on Rumi's skin. Now in this universe, having patterns means you're a demon, or at least you're in the process of becoming a demon. Now we do find out later that one demon in this movie was originally human, but that's it. We don't know anything at all about the origins of any other demonic forces in this film, and that's a real letdown in my opinion. Now they could explain this in a future project, which I'm certain this thing is going to get because of how popular it is, but it is kind of disappointing that we don't know anything at all about the origins of any of the other demons in this movie, except for the one that Rumi is the most interested in. Now they reveal that Rumi is part demon pretty early in the movie, and they show this by having her struggle to sing one of their new songs as they're getting ready to complete the honmoon, which is supposed to be this big magical seal that will keep the demons in the underworld, or whatever they call that place, away from humans for the rest of time. Singing strengthens the honmoon, and if Rumi can't sing, then they can't protect the world from demons. And that's the big thing for Rumi here. She needs to find a way to preserve her voice so that she can finish her job. But Rumi has another problem too. The pressure of feeling like everything is riding on her ability to sing to save the world. And it starts to break up the group later on. Now before I move on to the bad guys, I want to say there are a few other minor characters in here that don't really do a whole lot in some cases, but they're pretty good too. We've got Bobby, the Huntrix manager, and I really like that he's very supportive of this group, even though he generally is just a comic relief character. The tonics doctor is a lot of fun too. His medicine is crap and obviously he's a fraud, But he is really good at reading people, and he's sort of giving you a tease of the direction the story's going to turn in the later parts. I mean, he literally is there to tell you what the three huntrix girls are struggling with through this movie. And right after the girls leave the doctor's office, they run directly into the Saja boys, and whoo, what an entrance they made. Now, before I talk about this little encounter, let's talk about the Saja boys. They are a demon boy band in service of Gima, the Demon King. Gima is, of course, evil. He sends the demons up into the human world to harvest souls for him so he can absorb them and become stronger. The more powerful he is, the more influence he has over his demon horde, where he's able to force them to do things that he wants them to do by making their memories more painful, by turning up the voices of regret and guilt in their brains. The problem for Gima is that each generation of hunters through the years has proven very effective at what they do. And as time has passed, he's grown weaker and weaker to the point to where it seems like he's actually afraid he may not be able to sustain power much longer. This is where Genu enters the story, where he proposes to Gima that he will lead a demon boy band in the human world and win over Huntrix's fans, and that way they'll be able to weaken their overall ability to seal the Honmoon. But now we're back to the back alley meeting between Huntrix and the Saja boys, and I absolutely love it. The girls first get an eyeful of the four other demon boys in the band that aren't Genu, and Mira and Zoe just go absolutely gaga for the one with the well-defined abs. These girls are absolutely horny for these guys, and they actually even give them a sort of more family-friendly version of the bloody nose trope from anime that you see whenever usually some guy sees a hot girl that he really likes. What's even funnier is that Rumi tries to act like she's above that kind of behavior, and she goes to call Mira and Zoe gross, but at that exact moment, she sees Genu, and she is smitten. I actually think it's nice that this movie wasn't afraid to let its female characters be attracted to this group of dudes for just an incredibly shallow reason. I mean, it just makes them feel more human. So, what about the Saja boys? What are these guys all about? Well, they're demons. Really, that's it. For four of the members of this band, all they're there to do is be antagonistic to Huntrix and serve Gima. They have no other purpose. Now, I think it's perfectly fine that these characters don't really amount to much. They have a specific purpose in this story, and they do it well. The key here is Genu, who is sort of the main focus of the Saja boys, in the same way that Rumi is the highlight of Huntrix. At first, the rivalry between the two groups is played off for laughs and silliness, but once Genu learns that Rumi's a demon, things change. Because Rumi being a demon is her biggest secret. Nobody knows about this, not even Mira and Zoe, because her adopted mother and trainer Celine told her nobody could ever know. And just at the point where Rumi's secret was about to be exposed in front of Mira and Zoe, Genu steps in and helps her cover up her patterns at the very last moment. This is where the story really starts to kick in, because now Genu is interested in Rumi because he found out she's part demon, and Rumi is interested in why Genu would want to help her keep her secret intact. Eventually the two of them meet, and it's quite hostile at first, but Genu does try to offer her some kind of an understanding of what it means to be a demon. Rumi rejects the idea that she's actually a demon, and insists that she could never trust a guy like Genu because demons are monsters that don't feel anything. But Genu responds by saying that no, demons feel. In fact, that's all they do, and that's how Gima controls them. Then he tells Rumi about how he became a demon, where he was once human and made a deal with Gima to get he and his family out of poverty. But over time, the markings grew on his body until they completely overtook him, and he fell completely under Gima's influence, and his family was kicked out of the palace of the emperor, and they were forced to go back into poverty in even worse shape. After that meeting, the Saja boys and Huntrix trade wins through the weeks of which of their songs is the most popular, and we'll talk about the songs later because I really want to focus on those. But through this whole time, we start seeing that Rumi starts to question what their mission is all about. Then there's the table signing scene, which has a good bit of funny moments, but this is where we really see Genu and Rumi start to get on the same wavelength. And I really like the moment where the little girl handed Jinu a picture she drew of him as an angel that said, "You have a beautiful soul." I love how you can look at him and see how much it hurts him to read that because he knows that's a lie. Like, you can see it in his face that somebody having that high of a positive opinion about him really bothers him. Then he meets up with Rumi again, and this time things are much calmer between the two of them as they try to sort out what their plans are going forward. The meetings between Rumi and Jinu are actually handled quite well, I think. The first one is very aggressive as they're still kind of new to each other, and that's completely understandable. At the second meeting, they trust each other a little bit more, and Rumi even tells Jinu that if they can complete the honeymoon, that should not only erase her patterns, but if he's in the human world when they do it, that should cut him off from Gima entirely. And I really like what Rumi tells him about the concept of hope, in that it's something that no one else gets to decide whether you have it or not. And I think that's something that Rumi's character really does represent. Hope. Throughout this whole movie, Rumi believes that finishing the golden honeymoon will truly fix everything for everybody. And she holds on to that hope all the way up to the point where it becomes impossible for her to hold on to it. And then for their third meetup at the end, we see that Jinu has taken on some of Rumi's hope, and he starts thinking that maybe this plan with Gima isn't the best way to go about things. And it's at this point of the story where you should be feeling really sad for Jinu and feeling bad about the situation he found himself in, where he felt like he had to make a deal with the devil. I think that's very intentional on the movie's part, because immediately following this very heartfelt song about how both of them want to be free of the torments of their lives, we find out that Jinu hasn't been honest with Rumi about the severity of the thing he did. The reveal that Jinu effectively sacrificed his mother and sister so that he could get out of poverty is a punch in the gut for anybody who was really starting to feel for this character. And based on the reactions I've seen of people who recorded themselves watching the movie for the first time, they weren't sure how to feel about him after that. And I think some people were even trying to convince themselves that Gima had manipulated his memories into believing something that wasn't true. But I don't think this works for his character, and I think it makes him a much more compelling and interesting character if it was the case that he did something very crappy. Think about the story of Aladdin. He's a thief. He steals, but he only steals out of necessity. We never see him take more than he needs. We never see him steal from people who have less than him. And in fact, if you watch the animated film, he gives two kids who are digging through the trash the loaf of bread he just stole for himself. We can justify Aladdin's actions because we've seen that there seem to be no real negative consequences for this. As for Jinu though, his family ended up even worse. Sure, he was in poverty just like Aladdin, and when you're in a situation like that, you may be forced to make decisions you don't want to make. But the fact that he did choose to leave his own family behind and better himself and only himself does make him look really selfish. And he knows this too, because that's the entire reason he decided to stick with Gima and betray Rumi, because he feels like he doesn't deserve a second chance. You can see it in his face too when he finally admits the truth to Rumi, and he actually starts crying because that's how much it hurts him that he knows he did that. And then of course there's the big finale scene at the arena where Gima has now appeared in the human world and is preparing to absorb all of the human souls in the arena. This is where we get the only direct interaction between Rumi and Gima in the entire film, and this is where I think it highlights what they truly represent as opposed to each other. If you remember earlier, I said that I think Rumi represents hope. Well, on the flip side of that, I think Gima represents absolute hopelessness. When you get into your head that you're completely worthless and that you have no inherent value whatsoever, that can lead you into dark places. You pretty much become your own worst enemy, and the only way to defeat hopelessness of that nature is hope from an outside source, from someone else. Rumi knows that she can't save the world or fix herself all alone, so she has to have faith that her friends will stick by her no matter what and believe in her the same way that she believes in them. And it's in the big final battle where we see the three girls reunite and hug together, each accepting each other's flaws and understanding that, hey, we're in this together and we're going to get through it no matter what. And as a force of hopelessness, Gima's not going to take that lying down, and he takes the fight directly to Rumi. But Jinu steps in and takes Gima's attack for Rumi, sacrificing himself and giving his soul to her so that she can continue to fight. I think this is a perfect send-off for this character because when you really think about it, through the entire film, he's willing to sacrifice everyone, going back from when he sacrificed his mother and sister to being willing to sacrifice all the people in the arena to feed Gima so that he can have his memories erased. The perfect end for a selfish character realizing the error of their ways is the ultimate act of selflessness, to give his own life so that Rumi's light of hope can live on. Then they create a brand new honeymoon which isn't golden, go to the day spa together, which is something they've been wanting to do this entire movie and didn't do, and then they even meet some young fans of theirs, which leads off into the credits. Now before we get into the songs, there are a few things in my notes that I want to go over real quick. There's a character throughout this movie that you see whenever he changes sides and likes one group over the other, he rips off his t-shirt to reveal the opposing side's band logo. At the end of the movie in the arena, he's wearing a black shirt with Gima's name on it. But if you look at the font, you'll notice something very interesting about it. Any metalhead would be able to tell right away that that's the Metallica font. And alone, that's pretty cool. I mean, you wouldn't expect a Metallica reference in the movie called K-pop Demon Hunters. But it's an even more clever reference than you think. Because really, why would K-pop Demon Hunters want to reference Metallica of all things? Think about what Gima does throughout this whole movie. He manipulates the demons and the humans like some kind of puppet master. Or a master of puppets, you might say. Now, if you're not familiar with Metallica, you probably would never have even noticed that reference, and I myself only caught the logo part of it the first time I watched the film. It wasn't until later when I really started to think about the movie a little more that it became obvious what they were trying to do there. Now I want to wrap this whole thing up by talking about each of the songs and their place in the story that's being told. First off, I'm going to be Captain Obvious again. Each of these songs is amazing. How It's Done is a great intro song for the group because right before this we see them being silly and goofy, and then this song is just them kicking all kinds of demon ass. The whole opening sequence is a great way to sum up these girls' personalities in just a few minutes. It's wonderful and I wouldn't change anything about it. Golden is a song that represents the group's goal of finalizing the honeymoon and sealing the demons away forever. But if you notice, every time the girls sing Golden, either Rumi can't hit the note she needs to hit or something bad happens immediately after that. That's the song trying to tell you that the whole golden honeymoon plan is doomed to fail. Soda Pop is an absolute blast to listen to. It's so fun and upbeat. It reminds me a lot of BTS's Dynamite when that first came out. It has a lot of those same qualities. I mean, even Gima at one point couldn't resist singing My Little Soda Pop at one point in the movie. It's that catchy. Takedown is a high-energy diss track, and yeah, it's fun to listen to, but it's definitely the weakest song out of all of them. And not only as a song, but narratively as well. The group just cannot connect over this song, and Rumi outright despises it once she realizes that the anti-demon lyrics in the song not only apply to Jinu, who she's starting to feel some sympathy towards, but they can apply to her as well because she's a demon too. That reminds me that there's a part in the movie where Mira is talking to Rumi and she says that she can't wait until all the demons are suffering for all eternity, and Rumi just sort of nervously grins and says, "Yeah, eternal suffering. Sounds like fun." All this song does is make her think about what Celine told her all those years ago about how if she tells Zoe and Mira she's a demon, they're gonna sever ties with her. So unlike Golden, where Rumi actually did believe in the message of that song, she never believed in Takedown, so that song was always gonna be a failure too. Then there's Free, the duet between Rumi and Jinu, and this is the most powerful song in the entire movie, in my opinion. This is a song where two broken characters trying to run from their past are trying to find a way to help each other move beyond that painful past and into a brighter future where they're free of those past sins and regrets. I think if you're able to listen to this song and never once shed even just a single tear, you must be completely dead inside. Your Idol is a very powerful and dark but still kind of upbeat song, and I want you to really read the lyrics of this and then go back to Soda Pop. Soda Pop is a very cleverly upbeat, cutesy song about the demons absorbing souls. But Your Idol is a much more explicit version of that, where at first they're kind of misleading you and presenting themselves as some kind of saviors who will accept you for all of your faults. But the later part of the song just drops all of that and goes straight into talking about how no one is here to save you from us, we are your idols, which perfectly goes back to what I said about Gima representing total hopelessness. And the last song, What It Sounds Like, again, ties in the messaging of the film. It's about how all of these characters are flawed, but they've accepted that about themselves and their friends, and together they're able to move beyond anything that was bothering them previously to create this ultimate force that's fueled by hope for not only themselves, but for each other. This song is all about healing and honesty. Whether you've hurt somebody or someone's been hurting you, if we just confront these problems with the truth, we can start the healing process. Not all wounds can be treated by just ignoring them and hoping they'll go away. No, sometimes you've got to face them head on and get the proper treatment. But the most important thing to remember though is that you must hold on to hope, or else you'll end up like Jinu, a guy who felt like he deserved no hope. Therefore, he found himself constantly going back to a place in his own mind where he was hurting people. His choice to run from his memories of his mistakes instead of learning from them only led him deeper and deeper into the clutches of Gima and his evil plan. It wasn't until he saw Rumi still holding on to her own hope that he was able to break free of the manipulation of Gima to sacrifice himself. In a lot of ways, this movie reminds me of A Silent Voice, with Rumi reminding me of Shoko and Jinu reminding me of Shoya. Both Shoko and Rumi struggle with a condition that they were born with, and they both seem to believe that they are personally responsible for making sure that everybody gets along. Whereas Shoya and Jinu are both plagued by their own personal decisions, as well as the guilt that they feel from the pain that they caused. There's also a little bit of Shrek in there, with Jinu not taking too kindly to Rumi saying that demons don't feel anything, and of course Rumi hiding her patterns the same way that Fiona hid her ogre form. Overall, I think that K-pop Demon Hunters is a great film. It's not exactly reinventing the wheel so much as it is making a really cool wheel. I also like the fact that it touched on the complexity of morality and the concepts of redemption and forgiveness. Does wanting to help a demon make you a good person or a bad person? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thanks for watching this video, I really appreciate it. If you want to support my channel, then be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, I'm going to start saving up my V-Bucks, because you and I both know that Epic Games has probably already reached out to Netflix and Sony about putting Mira, Zoe, and Rumi into Fortnite.
1 week later.
Hey, guess what? It's happening!